This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Kof Zayin. I'm rolling in the bottom of Kovav on Midbeis, and we have a unique Daf dedication today. All the learning has been dedicated as a schos for all the different learning programs. The close friends of the Daf, most particularly Dirshu Mishnah Brura, which has begun El Shabbos and Erev Shavuos. B'siyat D'Shmaya, the learning the entire Chabura, learning Daf Yomi. Should it be a chizuk for everyone learning all the other Torah programs as we embark after Kabbalah Satira? B'siyata D'Shmaya. I'm holding the very bottom of Kovav Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, continuing the theme of Kablanos. The word Kablanis in Dirshu Mishnah Brura world means one thing. Over here it's similar, just the context, of course. So in least a field to plant a barley, you cannot plant wheat. Chitim, if you leased it to plant wheat, you could, yes, plant barley. Whereas if Shimon bin Gamliel oiser, continues the Mishnah, tvua leizarenu kidneys, but kidneys yizarenu tvua. V'rashbag oiser. So what's going on over here? So we look at Rashi. Rashi at the very bottom of Kovav and Beis explains Leizarenu Chitim, 3 lines to the bottom. Why? Shachitin machachishois as akarka. The reason being is that wheat makes the land weak more than barley. And now we can understand why that if you were commissioned to plant wheat, then you're yes allowed to plant barley because it's better for the ground. Similarly, in the end of the Mishnah, Tvua Leizarenu kidneys, Rashi in the very bottom speaks out why. Because kidneys are machichas at the karka yeshim and tvua. And from here, the Mishnah is basically one simple yesod, that to change and do something that's going to be more harmful to the karka, that of course you cannot do. You don't have any permission. You lease the land to do one thing. But to change it to something which will be less harmful, that one is, yes, allowed to do. Says the Hilagi Gemara, Rav Chisda, my time with Rav Shimon Gamliel. What is the reason for Rashbag? Rashbag says it's also even if you're doing something not as harmful to Chsiv. Says the Basli Sheiris Yisrael. Lo yasu avlo yidabru chazov. Klal Yisrael should not speak lies. Should not find anything deceitful in their mouth. And therefore it says Shimon Gamliel, I don't care that what you're doing is quote unquote less harmful for the karka. Bottom line, says Rashbag, you didn't have a permission to do that. You're changing your words. Therefore, that is not allowed. Meisvei asked the Gemara 3 lines on the bottom. Migvaz Purim le Purim. The collection for that name for Purim goes for Purim. Vein medaktikin bedavar. And we're not medaktik. Vein ani rasha likach men ritua lesandaloi. And an ani is not allowed to take a ritua for his sandal. Elam kein istem b'may b'nayin she'ir. Divrei Rabbi Yaakov. Unless we made a tanai that he's allowed to utilize the money for other purposes. Shamar mishum Reb Meir. That's Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Reb Meir. Rashbag, what says the Gemara, what does Rav Shimon Gamliel hold? And of course, this is going to be the kasha, as Rav Shimon Gamliel by the Os was the machmir. Yet over there by the Migvas Aniyim, by Purim, what is Rav Shimon Gamliel, the Tanakamba, Rav Yaakov b'shem Reb Meir is the machmir. Comes in Rav Shimon Gamliel, and what does he say? He's meikol. As the top Rashi says, even though you're changing, why? Because people are not makbid. So explains the Gemara, Amar Abaye time with Rav Shimon Kidemar. The reason for Rav Shimon is like Mar, which is what the second line of Rashi speaks out, Rabbi Rachmini, which is Rabbi to Abaye to Rabbi Gidloi Bebeisai. Damar Mar Haiman Denichale de Titzvar Arye Lizara. Because it explains Rabbi Nachmani, one who wants to make his land barren, Lizara Shasa Chiti, Vishasa Sairi. 1 year wheat, the next year barley, Shasa Shisi, Vishasi, Arev. 1 year Shasi lengthwise, 1 year Arev crosswise, and therefore you're going to ruin the field that way. So that's the reason why Rav Shimon Gamliel says you can't change. Why? Because by changing, the change destroys the field. V'lei amaran, says the Gemara, this is only true ala delay kariv vitani, only if you do not plow after and repeat plowing again. Vitani, kariv vitani, then leslan ba. So that's going to be the reason for Shem Gamliel, because it harms the land. Just is very interesting. We said the daf is dedicated for those who started the Yerusha Mishnah Berurah, the first Siman El Chashabis Rishon Beis, when it discusses the halachos of Oinig Shabbos and the fact that you have to give the Anit Sukkah over there. It mentions Mamish this line about changing from one Sukkah to the next, Mikvas Purim LePurim, incredible Siyata Dishmaya. And we continue at the two dots, 5 lines down, quoting the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah, Tvua Lezer Enu Kinyes V'chulu. Masni La Rav Yehuda LeRavin. Rav Yehuda taught the following Mishnah to Ravin, Tvua Yizarenu Kitnius. That if someone goes for Tvua, then he can, plant Kitnius, meaning not like the Mishnah. Amar Le, Rav Ravin responded, Vanan Tanan, Tvua Lo Yizarenu Kitnius. Amar Le, Lo Kasha, Halan, V'halahu. One is us in Bavel, whereas our Mishnah applies to Eretz Yisrael, as Rashi, 6 lines into the narrow lines, articulates that Masnisin is Eretz Yisrael, Kai, which is a place of mountains, and therefore Vikal Amech L'chosha Da'ara. Whereas when Rav Yehuda learned his Mishnahs in Bavel, which is Mitzula Tvua B'Bitzei Amayim, therefore we don't have such a concern because it is a more fertile land and less mountains, etc. Continues the Gemara, once we have one din from Rav Yehuda, that's at Ravin. Continues the Gemara to quote another. Amar Lei. Rav Yehuda l'Ravin bar Rav Nachman. Rav Yehuda says to Ravin bar Rav Nachman, Ravin achi, Ravin my brother. Hani tachli devei masna. This cress that grows amongst the flax, ein bahem mishom gezel, is no problem of gezel. Why? Because the cress is damaging to the flax, therefore you're allowed to remove them. Oim dais al gvulin. But if you have these cress plants that are on the border of the fields, yesh misham gezel, then there is a problem of gezel, you're not allowed to take them. Vim hokshu lezara. However, if you took the cress, why? Because it became hard enough, lizara, that the seeds are ripe to plant, then afilu devei kisna nami misham gezel. That even if you're taking them from a munch the kisna, it's a problem of gezel, my taima, my davsid, whatever the plant harmed the neighboring plant that already did. So getting rid of it now doesn't do anything, and therefore at this point there will be gezel. And a third day, Namli Rav Yehuda Ravin Bar Rav Nachman Ravin Achi Ani Dili Dilach V'Dilach Dili. My tree are yours and your trees are mine. No B'nei Mitzrayim. Why? Because anyone who shares a boundary between fields, we hold Ilan Anatua Lekanu Lekan, that a tree that is on the border, the roots that go to this side goes to that side. Anatua Lekan Lekan. The Itmar, as we learned, or as we will learn the Sugyas of Bava Basra, Ilan Oimin Ala Mitzar Amar Rav Anaita Lekan Lekan Lekanu Lekan. Was Yishmol Amar Cholkin So Machlekes. So Meisvei asked the Gemara on Rav. Ilan Omer Metziah Achloiku to after the Rav, because the price is explicitly Achloiku, whereas Rav said not the way. Tergum Shmuel, with the Rav, that when do we say that it's Achloiku? Is when the whole boundary is completely filled, meaning, and therefore the roots are going to both fields. Says the Gemara Yachi, if that's the case, Ma'ilem Emra, what's the Chiddush of Adas Yachloiku? It's Mamish splitting into both. Says the Gemara, the case is, the Chiddush is where the fruit is hanging to one side. Says Gemara, what's the Chiddush? I would have thought, says the Gemara, I would have thought that the owner could tell him, split it this way. And the Gemara continues with a fourth member of Rav Yehuda that he said to Ravin bar Rav Nachman, Smack in the middle of the Amid. The first one in line is Bar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachi, Loi Tizbin Ara Dismicha. Do not buy a field that is close Lismicha, which is close to Lemos of the town. Why? Amar Rav Avua, Amar Ravuna, Amar Rav. Aser Loi Ladim Shamid Al Sadach Averai. Shasha Med is becoming myself. You're not allowed to stand on your friend's field when it has a crop that is standing there. Why? Because you're going to look at his crop and it's going to be an ayin hara. And therefore, if we see that looking at a crop could cause an ayin hara, certainly you shouldn't buy a field near a town. Why? There's more people, more ayin hara. Says the Gemara, Any is this true? Vashkechena Rav Abba l'talmidei de Rav. Rav Abba found the talmidim of Rav. Amrlo Mayom Rav Hani Kroi. What did Rav say about the pasuk Baruch Atah B'Yar, Baruch Atah B'Sadeh, Baruch Atah B'Ve'echa, Baruch Atah B'Seisecha? V'am Rilei, and the talmidim responded, you know what Rav said? Hochi Amar Rav, Baruch Atah B'Yar, Shei Beischa Samach L'Beis HaKnesses. Your house should be close to the shul. And what does it mean, Baruch Atah B'Sadeh? What is it, blessed is you in the field? Shei Nechasecha Krovim L'Yar. That your field should be, yes, close to the city. Baruch Atah B'Vayecha, Shloisim Se'ishcha Saving Nida, B'Shasha B'Yaschem, and Adarech, come home from a journey, you shouldn't find your wife a Saving Nida. Baruch Atah B'Tzeisecha, that what? She'ei Tzeitzayim Be'yacha, Kamaischa, that your offspring should be like you. So says the Gemara, what do we see clearly? We see from Rav that it's good to have your fields near the your fields near the city. Amr Rav Yechel Amar Hachi Ala Baruch Atah B'Yer. So it says the Gemara, why do we just say that you should not have your field near the city due to the concerns of ayin hara? We see not that way. Says the Gemara, Rav holds is an extra schar for walking to shul. And we're continuing this brayso, so we haven't yet answered our kasha. But once we're discussing all the different joshas of Baruch HaTavir, Baruch HaTavisadeh, continues the Gemara. So first of all, Rav Yochanan said, you don't necessarily want to live near a shul. Why? You want to get the extra schar to walk to shul. Says the Gemara, Baruch HaTavisadeh, Mishulashin. Your property should be divided into thirds. Shlish b'tfuah, third in grain, shlish b'zeitim, shlish b'gefanim. Shall leave this world, can be yascha la'ilam as you came in, ma be yascha la'ilam b'loi chet. After yascha min a'ilam b'loi chet. So concludes the brayso, and the Gemara is bothered that seemingly it is, yes, a good thing to have your field near the city. Why did you teach us that there's a problem of marasayin and you should not have your field near the city? Turning over to Concise and Metziah, the answer is the Gemara, Lo Kasha. This was the Kasha and Rav. Hadim Adlei Shura Veritzka, Adlom Adlei Shura Veritzka. One is where there's a wall and a hedge around the field, so there's not a problem of ayin hara. And the other is where there is not. Continues the Gemara. Once we mention one memra about ayin hara, we follow it up with a second. Ve'eser Hashem Imcha, on the third line of Concise and Metziah, Kol Chayli, Hashem is going to remove from you all disease. Amar Rav. Zu ayin, what is it referred to? It refers to the ayin hara. Rav l'taimei, the Rav Salak l'bei kivri. Rav once went up to the Beis HaKvaros, the cemetery of my David, and he did what he had to do. He basically, what Rav did, explains Rashi that he knew how to lilchaish, whatever that means, on the kavaros to understand the reason why each person died, or they died at the right time, or they died because of ayin hara. Amar, and said Rav, Tisha v'tisha v'ayin hara, 99 out of 100 died because of ayin hara. Ve'echad b'derech eretz. Incredible statement about ayin hara. How careful one has to be not to flaunt anything, to stay out of the public eye, as one does not want. Terrible ayin hara. Shmuel Amar zeh ruach refers to the wind of an illness. Shmuel tameid Amar Shmuel akol beruach. Shmuel holds that's what causes death. U'l'Shmuel ayik aruga malchus. What about those that are killed by the king? Why are you telling me everyone dies natural means due to the ruach? Explains the Gemara, Hanachnami. These also, even those who are killed by execution, he loves zikav, not for the wind, avdelu. Sama v'chaya, we be able to give them medicine and keep them alive. The wind is that which hastens their death. Rav Chanina Amar Zusina. Says Rav Chanina, this refers to the cold. Amar Rav Chanina, kol b'dei shamayim, chutz mitzinim ubachim, except for cold drafts. Shenemar, tzinim bachim aderech iki sheminashi yerchim mehem, that if you want to guard your soul, you'll guard yourself from the cold. Rav Yosi Rav Chanina amar zu tzaya. What is it referred to? It's referred to tzaya. Damar mar tzayis achaitem, excuses for the nose. It's tzayis eyes in the ears. Ruben kasha, many are harmful. Umiuten. Yafeh. Rav Lazar Amar Zumara says Rav Lazar is first to the gallbladder, that when it says Hashem's going to protect you, Ve'eser Hashem Kol Chayli on the third line, first two diseases of the gallbladder. Tana Mihachi Abraisa, Machla Zumar Rav Lamne Kushom Machla, She Machla Kol Gufai Shel Adam. Davar Acher, Machla Sheshmayim V'Shalosh Chaloyim Tliyin. The disease, that 83 diseases are Tliyin B'Mara, with the gallbladder. V'kula and pashachris b'melech v'kitin shamayim mivatlin. A little bit bread and water in the morning, bread and salt in the water, and a pitcher of water will counteract all these terrible intestinal gallbladder diseases. Taner Rabbanan. Continues the Gemara, Samak in middle of the Amid. The first line is mivatlin. Says the Gemara, Taner Rabbanan Yigimol Dvarim. Nemru be'pashachris. 13 things. We said about Bas Shachar, about eating bread in the morning. Matzels minachama. It says from the heat, minatzina from the cold, minazikin from the winds, minamazikin the demons, umachimas apasi makes the fools wise, v'zeichabadin makes it successful in judgment. Lil ma'itayr of lil ulalamed, v'dvarim the shemayim, and his words are heard. V'talmudai mitkayim biyadai. Vein besara mala hevel, and his body will not have excessive sweat. In his akik leishtai, and he will join with his wife. He won't want another woman. And it'll kill the worm in his stomach. Gets rid of jealousy and brings friendliness, brings ava. This is all for eating pas shachris. Says the Gemara, what's the makar? Amalei Rabba Rava Bar Mari Minam Milsa Damri, and she already know that which we say Shitin Rahiti Rot. V'lama to the Gavra, 60 runnings a person ran, but they didn't catch the person that was. V'lama to the Gavra the Misafri Karach, that had bread in the morning. V'amar Rabbana and Hashkim get up early. V'aychal b'kaitz the Sunday Achama, because of this heat. Ubachayr in the winter they had sina. So we see all these incredible entities of bread in the morning. Where does it come from? No hunger or thirst, no heat will hit them. Why? Because they were not hungry nor thirsty. Why? Because they had the bread and water in the morning. I'll give you a different makar. Says the pasuk of Atim Hashem Lakecha, and 10 lines on the white lines. Ubarich es lachwa v'esim becha. Atim Hashem Lakecha zu kriyas shema tefila. Ubarich es lachwa v'esim becha zu pas v'melach v'kita shamayim. Mikan ve'eloch. From this point and onward, v'asiraisi machla mikirbecha. This will remove all diseases from your midst. Continues the Gemara. Back to our discussion of properties. Amalei Rav Yehuda Rav Ada Meshucha. Rav Yehuda said to Rav Ada Meshucha, lo tizallu b'mishcha to kol porta. Do not treat serving lightly. To kol porta chazi lekarma rishka. You know why? Because each and every small piece of land you could grow even chashav items. Garden saffron. Amalei Rav Yehuda Rav Ada Meshucha dalet amos da nigra zilzal. 4 amos on the irrigational canal is zalzal bahu, that you could treat lightly. Why? Because on the sides of the river you should not measure at all. Explains the Gemara, what's the reason for this halacha? So Rav Yehuda l'taimei, and the first white line says Rav Yehuda, Dam Rav Yehuda arba amos, da nigra lebnei nigra, that goes to people that use the irrigational canal, danahara, the kuliyama by a river. Then it goes to everyone. Stop over here. We'll pick it up from here, b'siyata dishmaya.